starting to warm up a little bit. Not quite. It actually went right back to freezing, but
I don't
it's
know what
going
you're
to
talking
get
about
warm.
warming up. We're back in second winter.
Welcome into Inside the Game, episode 236 here on the National Soccer Network. At least it's supposed to. I'm starting to get that fever, that March fever, if you will, March Madness around the corner, and I've been watching highlights and different compilations and stuff about March Madness coming up. And I know obviously we just had the hockey game in the Olympics, but that's the next thing that I think both of us are kind of focused on right now. Is that's the big one coming up. So I'm excited about that. But Ryan, how are you?
Doing good. Doing great. How are you?
Doing okay. I'm happy to get into it today. Also, it's fun to see all the different excuses from the peanut gallery when it comes to USA v Canada in that matchup just a couple of days ago. It's hilarious to get to see, but it's obviously it's a part of all of it, and it's a part of winning that, and then obviously having to wait 4 years for the next one. But getting into our first conversation here today on hour one at Inside the Game. First, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who joins us every single morning, again, 9 to 11 here on the National Soccer Network. We continue to see our numbers go up in terms of, especially our live viewers. I know we've gotten a lot of updates on what that all looks like. We appreciate, obviously, the people that let us know what those numbers are, but those numbers continue to go up. So follow us on social media at National Soccer Network, also Sports Nation PMG as well. We got our all sports content on that side of the aisle. Obviously, a lot of good stuff there. So go check us out. Make sure to drop your live comments too. If you have any live comments here on our show, we'd love getting the opportunity to address those. But getting into our first topic here today, and I think that when it comes to USA soccer, we were excited yesterday to talk about this team because we wanted to talk about, what would their miracle moment be? And the funny thing is that miracle itself, while it was a moment, it was that entire tournament. The entire tournament was the miracle. Yeah, obviously beating the Soviets was the biggest part of that, but them even getting to that point was a miracle in and of itself. And we talked about, what would the US men's national team have to do to be able to deliver a moment like that for USA soccer, where the youth players kind of look at it and go, wow, this is possible. We talked about getting to a World Cup. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I don't think anybody in their right mind believes that's going to happen this year. But it seems like everybody's timeline as to when is the U.S. men's national team finally going to that next echelon of soccer playing countries. Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be 4 years, 8 years, 12 years from now? When are we finally going to make that leap into the next grouping of superstars? And I think there's a lot of people that think a lot of different things. I talked about how I think the 17, 18-year-old group that's coming up looks really good. So, maybe 8 years, 12 years, all of a sudden we find ourselves in a vastly different position than what we are now. But there's one particular figure in American soccer that seems to think that we're actually far further out than what we are. Ryan, tell us a little bit about what Steve Cherundolo had to say about just how far the U.S. men's national team is away from winning a World Cup or competing for one.
He said that we are 70 years behind the rest of the world. He says
Mm.
we're behind with our development and the sport of this country. And he also goes on to talk about, what he experienced in Germany. He said he didn't want to sound arrogant or anything because he's like, I learned a lot being in Germany for 22 years, but he does mention that. And he also talks about development. He says we also can't be afraid to use what's working. I believe creating a system where players are trying to find their level and having to move up a level to get to that level so they can be tested. He also talks about, because Trundle actually was a LAFC manager for I think 3 seasons, 3 or 4, and he's the first manager to ever win, I believe, the MLS Cup and the Supporters Shield in his first season. I think I could be wrong on that,
Wow.
but he obviously moved back to Germany to be close with his family. He said he had a family matter, and that's why he moved back. But he just talks about development more specifically in this country and how he actually tried to help development, because I think he came over here back in like 2019, 2020 or something like that, somewhere around that time frame. But obviously he's back in Germany, coached over there for a little bit, helped with the academy system here or over in LA. But he's right. I mean, I feel like soccer was not really taken seriously in this country, I think, until, I shouldn't say not taken seriously, but I don't think they really woke up to the idea of, this ain't working, and we got to do something else. I think after the 2018 whole debacle, and obviously other countries have faced that. It's not just a U.S. thing. Like Germany, I don't think qualified for either the '08 Euros or the '04 Euros. I forget exactly which one, but they did not qualify for one of the Euros, and then all of a sudden they reshaped how they did everything, and then guess what happened in 2014? They win the World Cup. Mario Götze's unbelievable finish to beat Messi in that World Cup, and there's a lot of moments from that Germany team that'll be in the World Cup countdown. Just as a heads up, maybe number one is one of their instances, but no,
Yeah.
I think he's right. He talks about development, and there's another thing that he talks about, and there's something that I've always thought about and always kind of talked about a little bit is, dude, if you're a youth development, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be soccer. It could be any sport. But if you're developing as a team, developing as a player, your 10-1 games that you win, they don't mean anything. They really don't, because you don't get better. Maybe it helps your confidence, maybe a little bit, but if anything, it kind of gets you back in maybe a complacent state. You don't really gain anything
Mhm.
from that experience, because he talks about in that game in this quote that I didn't put in there about LA Galaxy and LAFC, about when he was in academy and he'd see the U12s, the U13s, the U14s win a game 10-1 or 10-0, something like that. He goes, that's just a waste of time. There's no reason for that at all. Like, you
Mhm.
don't improve yourself at all. And obviously, you can't make every game a down to the wire game. Obviously, we know that. And sometimes that's going to happen, especially at the youth level, depending on where you're playing and who you're playing. But it's just, he talks about that, and it's really good to hear someone, with his pedigree say something like that, is and his respect, I guess, in the whole grand scheme of things. But yeah, it's all about development, and I feel like we've done a really poor job in terms of development in this country until about 2018, 2019.
Yeah, well, and it's because the educational component has certainly gotten better, and that's something that we've heard from former players. It's something that we've heard from people we've had on our show. Like, the education around the game itself has gotten far better in the United States over the course of years, and you could say since 2018. And that's why I say, like, the difference between the 26 World Cup and what we saw in 2020, or rather in 1994, is number one, our understanding of the game is far better now than what it was then. But maybe more importantly, we are caught up in our understanding of what the game is and what it looks like. However, the development side, it really all goes back to the model that we already have created. And we've also seen former U.S. men's national team players, and Landon Donovan talked about this on his show with Tim Howard and Unfiltered. Said it almost feels like we need to just kind of tear the whole thing down and start over again, because we've gotten so far down the line to where we've created this kind of discrepancy, not only between clubs and parts of the country, but also just the pay for play model has kind of made it to where if you are, even if you're middle of the line, you can buy your way to the level that you want to get to. And so that's where I think he's kind of trying to make this point, is like, there's no real clear dividing lines between the different levels in USA men's soccer, especially on the men's side, because we're just so scattered, right? You have college soccer, and then you have MLS Next and those academies, and then you have the United Soccer League, and then you have the UPSL, and then you have, so you have so many different leagues and places that you can go, that this pyramid that we talk about that exists in a lot of these other countries, where it's like these very clear and distinct levels. Like, here's the bottom level, here's the third, second, and then here's the top level. In the United States, it's like, well, you have the USL pyramid, and then you have the MLS, and sometimes they'll get kids and put them into their academies, and then eventually they'll be, get into Major League Soccer. So you have, two major brands, and then obviously everything else in the NCAA, which, I mean, it itself, sometimes kids go out of that league directly into the professional leagues. So now you have USL and MLS competing for those kids. So in other parts of the world where there's a very clear defined pyramid or structure in which you are advancing up through this structure to eventually get to the highest level, and it works like, and especially in a place like Germany, I would imagine, when you have a system like that, it's a lot easier to not only identify talent, but also identify what level they should be on and be able to progress them up accordingly. I just don't look at. Sometimes I look at the soccer landscape, and it's just not. It's not the same. And there are certain clubs that just can't compete at that level, but they paid their dues. They paid their money. Now they're a part of it, and that's really all you need to do to be considered on a certain level. So it's just there's this vast discrepancy sometimes, and you look at certain leagues and you look at the best teams in that league. It's like, okay, they develop well, but then you look at the bottom half of like the UPSL or whatever, and it's like some of these kids, like where did they come from? Like, where'd you even get them? So I don't. That's the part where, and we've talked about this before, because in other major U.S. professional sports, sometimes you can see that there's a clear model. There's a minor leagues and then there's a major leagues, right? Like you go through high school and then you get noticed, or maybe you do some travel or some club or AAU or whatever it happens to be. You go to college, then after college, if you're good enough, you get drafted, then you probably go to the minors, and after the minors, if you're good enough there, then you get your promotion and then you get your contract in Major League Baseball. In soccer, it's the Wild West in the US. There's a lot of it. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of it, and there's a reason why we cover about 1,500 games every year on our network. There's so much soccer going on around, but who's who and who's where and who's progressing and who's not and why? No one really knows. No one really knows sometimes. So there is a pyramid in U.S. soccer, but it is very much it's kind of
It's all over the place.
it's a pyramid, but it's a flexible pyramid. It moves around quite a bit.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. But I think that in every country there's a set pyramid, there's a set pathway. And in every other sport here in America, there's a set pathway. You mentioned it, high school to college to some sports you go straight to the pros, some you go into the minors, and then eventually you get back. But for soccer, I feel like they just put a whole bunch of random stuff out there, and then we're like, well, maybe something can happen. Like, eventually we
Yeah.
put enough darts at the dartboard, eventually something's gonna hit, right? But that hasn't
Mm-hmm.
happened yet, and it just feels like
Mm-hmm.
it's just all over the place. And some teams might not deserve to be in some leagues, and some teams are in better or in leagues that they shouldn't be in because they're better or they're worse. Again, it all comes back to money. And I feel like we're starting to, try to get back to the traditional way. I mean, look, soccer's the one sport in the world that we don't do best. We don't have the correct pathway. We don't have, anything. We don't have the right structure, I
It's just
guess.
not concise. It's not not understandable. It's very vague. I feel like for a lot of either prospects or coaches or anybody involved, the whole pyramid is vague.
Yeah, I would agree. Sorry, you cut out there for a second. But so
No,
I
you're
don't
good.
know exactly what you said there. But no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's not concise. It's like you said, it's every pyramid normally is just like it's a straight line, straight diagonal up. This one is like
Yeah.
it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I get it.
Right.
It's and that's the issue
Hmm.
with our country is there's so many different leagues, and sometimes I don't know what league is better than what league. Or like obviously we know the MLS is the best league in this country. We know that, and then USL Championship is the second best. We know that. But it's like sometimes
Yeah.
when you get a little bit lower in the other leagues with 4 different letters and some with 3 and some with 1s and 2s and pro or
Yeah.
elite, some
Yep.
I don't know. Like sometimes
Yep.
I'm like I don't necessarily know the quality of it. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit interesting, and I don't know exactly, what the solution could eventually be, because I think if we want to eventually get to that set pyramid like the Englands, like the Germanys, like the Spains and all that, a lot of people aren't going to be happy. That's the issue, because like you can't go to these wealthy, especially the MLS teams, those wealthy billionaire owners of like, hey man, you could get relegated now, like, and lose more money. Like that can't be something said. Like I feel like we're too far down the line to eventually say that. USL, I guess, maybe isn't far enough down the line, I guess, to eventually go up to these owners and say there could be relegation. But I guess the only way to sell it is, well, this is going to help, the game in our country. But they might not be like, well, who cares about the game in our country? I just care about myself and care about, getting butts in the seats and all this and that. But I feel like USL's on the right way in terms of a pathway, but the MLS is the best league, and the MLS is its own thing. Obviously, there's academies
Yeah.
now and MLS Next and all that. Now, like I get that they're creating their own pathway, I guess their own, but like we need one set pathway in this country to get the best players from the ages of 13, 14, 15, up into the academy system, I guess, and then we're straight into the first team. But I
Yeah.
don't think if we ever get to that, I feel like that's like 15, 20 years down the line. But I will say we've woken up. I would say we've woken up.
I think we've woken up. I don't quite think we've come to our fruition, but I think we've woken up, and I think the USL is an example of how we understand the game better as Americans now than maybe what we used to, right? Because we have this product that looks more similar to what we're seeing in other parts of the world in terms of the development structure, in terms of the creating a pyramid, and now introducing something like promotion and relegation. But we are very, very far down the line. It almost has an up a creek without a paddle kind of vibe to it, simply because Major League Soccer was not originally founded around the idea of being like the rest of the world. It was founded on the American principles of you have this professional league, you have a draft, you have an all-star game, you have, and it's going to be a closed league structure, and this is how we're going to do it. And we have X amount of teams, and that's how it is. Almost kind of like the NFL or the NBA or any of the other major American sports, which works out well for them because we've never had promotion and relegation in any of those leagues, right? So for the American viewer, it's like, well, no big deal. But I think what FIFA, and this is where, like, when people are like, well, FIFA doesn't need the US, this was partially FIFA's idea to have Major League Soccer. Like, FIFA has always seen the potential in the United States, like always seen the potential in the US, because they look across the board and they're like, wow, the US actually puts their mind to something. They can become the best in the world at it.
People in the country.
Yeah, fucking crazy. Like, maybe there's a few people in there that might be pretty good at playing our game. You never know. This is a major market that we need to take advantage of. But what I think FIFA and even the people that maybe founded the MLS miscalculated or didn't realize is that, okay, yeah, we can create an American league that we think will attract American viewers, but the truth is that the way that they did it has turned a lot of people off because it is a closed league structure, and because we are years down the line, and our understanding of what makes the game beautiful is the promotion and relegation. It is the story like a Wrexham, who can go from the bottom level all the way to the top, or darn near to the top. They have an opportunity to go to the top. So, those are the things that I think, as the American audience has gotten more educated and they've gotten more exposure to the game, they've kind of fallen in love with that style and that structure. And so now it's just, does that ever become the case in the United States? And to your point, Ryan, I think, again, as we said before, and we said this on the show, and people blew up at it. They're like, well, that'll never happen. It's like, I would hesitate with saying never, but it is going to take a few years for the USL and the MLS to ever come to the table together and look at each other and go, listen, like let's create one big structure. Let's share this money together, but let's create one professional structure for the sport of soccer here in the United States. But I think if we ever want to, in terms of the development, now we've gotten far better. Again, the international influence, the training has gotten better, sports medicine has gotten better. There is a lot of deceit and a lot of the athletes have certainly gotten better. And obviously, I tend to believe, and this isn't just an arrogant American thing, I think we have the best athletes in the world in this country. And so I think it's just a matter of convincing certain kids to play the sport of soccer as opposed to playing the other sports. But anyways, it's all gotten better. But we're just talking about what does the future look like in terms of creating something that, again, as we started this conversation talking about, is more clear, concise, and understandable. That is the point that I think American soccer just they need to get to if they want to realize any of those things that any of their goals really at the end of the day.
I will say I think the Wrexham mention right after us talking about billionaires might be a little bit hypocritical. I'm just saying, because they just took money and as a fifth tier league, and they basically had a third division side in the fifth league. So I will say that might be a little bit hypocritical. I'm just saying,
money is one thing though. Like, what do you do with that money? Like, every owner has money, but like,
well,
they
recruited really well. They hired a very good manager in Phil Parkinson, and then eventually they spent a good amount of money in the right spots. That's ultimately what I'll say. They basically had a League One side playing in Division 5, which is the third tier of English football over there. So, yeah, that might be a little bit hypocritical, I would say. But the only issue is about American soccer is the pathway to the pros is not traditional. It's not the high school 5-star, 4-star, 3-star.
Yeah.
You get recruited, you go
Yep.
to college, and then eventually. And first off, the college game in soccer hurts us. In the totality of world soccer.
Don't tell the coaches you said that.
I'm just telling you because we don't play. It doesn't play year round. It's only
Yeah.
It ends in, if you're good enough, it ends in November, right? A little bit after Thanksgiving, maybe early December. In totality,
Yeah.
and that's why I think them potentially moving the schedule is the best thing. Not that the college game, not that the players or the quality of the coaches or anything like that hurts it. It's the setup of it's the setup of the game is what hurts soccer. I'm not saying the coaches, not saying the players. I'm saying the setup of Division 1, Division 2 of college soccer in this country is set up wrong. That's what I'm saying. That's what I should have said. My bad.
No, you're good. I would be interested to know like how many different, if we're talking about like, let's take like a European player who's 22, he's in Germany. How many different clubs or teams is he playing for at once? Because you look at the American player, like, okay, they go play for Michigan State, and then that season ends, and then they're with Midwest United, or maybe they go join another USL2 side, in the summer. And you'll see like certain players, they played for like 5 different clubs throughout the course of like 3 years, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
they just need to find
talked
an open
with
spot.
one of the U of D players the other day about that. He was at the spot where I was at, and we were talking, and he's from Australia, and I was asking him, about stuff, and I was like, what USL2 team you
It's
gonna
called
be at?
soccer.
Huh?
It's called soccer. They call it soccer too.
I said football, and he was like, "Wait, do you mean soccer?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, mad respect for you, bro." He's like, "Mad respect that you call it football. I know how to play the game. I know how to play the game." But no, he's right because he talked about certain clubs that's interested in him for the summer and all that fun stuff. But no, it's
Mhm.
and then I said I had a football podcast, and he thought it was like the coolest thing ever. So shout out to him. But yeah, no, it's just there's a simple quote that my buddy told me back in college. That he's a big soccer guy. He goes, American soccer players grow up to go play college, whereas European soccer players grow up to go play pro. There's a big difference in all that. I'm not saying college soccer players are bad. I'm not saying a coach or a player is anything less than a European soccer player. But there's a difference once you get to that level, which is you get to the college level and you're only playing 4 months out of the year. After that, you're doing your off-season training. You're not playing, which again could be a positive in terms of the games that you play. And then eventually, once you're in the off-season, you fall into the trap that is what I did on a weekly basis, which is go out and drink and do stuff for 3 days out of the week. Maybe they do it once or twice, but that hurts. But then you go to the pro side. And it's business. You're a professional athlete at the age of 18 from, you're playing August all the way up to May or June, I would say. So there's a big difference in that because you're only playing 4 months, whereas someone's playing 9 months. Maybe you get hurt. Maybe that hurts you a little bit in the long run, but in the end, you are still playing. You're still getting way better as a pro than a college player because the amount of games, the amount of training, the amount of reps that you're getting, and in live action. Because ultimately, where do you get better the most? That's in real game live situations, and that's exactly what Europe has perfected. And that's why I think ultimately the NCAA reaching out and saying like, let's maybe change the calendar a little bit. I think that's the best thing.
Yeah, and you're right, and I think more closely, but I don't think you're ever going to exactly match what you go through as a professional, simply because of the volume of games. We even see that in baseball sometimes too. We get guys from college that are like, you only play for X amount of time, then maybe you play in a summer league or something. But obviously professional baseball, the biggest adjustment is playing all those games, 132 or whatever they end up playing, probably 100 plus games throughout the course of the year. That'll wear you down. That'll beat you down in a lot of ways. So I always think you're always going to have college soccer. Like college soccer isn't going to go away, but I think if you make a system that is more concise and more understandable, then you can work with the NCAA to be able to get the best out of that league and still develop, So I think that's the important thing. But I just think that's the unique thing about the American soccer experience, that you'll have these players that play at 4 or 5 different clubs. And even if you go back to the youth levels, like when they just started playing, it's probably like 10 different clubs throughout the course of their life. And it's like, I could imagine you pick up habits at these different places, depending on where you train, depending on who it is you talk to. Like, you can pick up a lot of different habits throughout the course of playing in all these different places.
Which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing.
It could be a good thing. Yep, could be a good thing or a bad thing. But it's an interesting conversation for sure. Coming up, we will talk about, speaking of USA Soccer, Michael Bradley has been impressive since becoming a coach in Major League Soccer. Obviously, he won a championship at the MLS Next level, but he has been doing great at Major League Soccer. We'll talk about that coming up next year on Inside the Game. First, let's tell you about FC Bayern Summer Soccer Camps. They're a proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network, fostering football excellence across North America, open to boys and girls of all skill levels. FC Bayern camps deliver elite training inspired by FC Bayern Munich's world-class philosophies. Select your city and start a promising soccer path. And right now, save $30 on registration by using promo code BayernNSN30. Again, that's BayernNSN30, or scan the QR code on your screen. Learn more at fcbayernyouth.com. You can catch the major arena soccer league here on the National Soccer Network and the Major Indoor Soccer League. Obviously, we talk to Tanner White every single week about that league. Another fun conversation coming up later on. I know we're getting down to the nitty-gritty in that league and what's going on. And I loved what he had to say about what makes the indoor game unique, because there's certainly a lot of things that do. But let's get into the second part of our conversation here in the first hour.
Kirk Cousins just got cut. I found that funny, because I don't like Kirk Cousins. He's a very annoying voice.
Really?
He's a very annoying voice.
Out of all the Michigan State alums, if there's one guy I like the most, it has to be Kirk Cousins.
Is it because he's from Michigan?
I realize.
Is it because he's from the west side of the state?
No. I realize.
We know what it is. He's from the state of Michigan, so ultimately, you're like in love with the guy. It's the same thing with Trinidad. But no,
okay, he's from
Kirk Cousins
Holland.
has an annoying voice. You have to admit he's got an annoying voice.
That's fair, but I really like the story of him driving the same van he had in high school, or the same vehicle he had in high school for his first X amount of years in the league. I mean, that's pretty cool, man. I feel like most people, when you sign a contract worth millions of dollars, would go out and like buy a freaking Bugatti with their money. But like this guy,
do you like Christian McCaffrey because he got dropped off
down
at
to earth
Carolina Panthers practice by his mom? Is that
Heck yeah.
Does that warm your heart enough? But I know he's not from
Actually,
Michigan, so I don't know
it
how
warms
that
my
works.
heart that his dad actually made him wear sweatpants as opposed to jeans every day, because jeans wear you down because they're too heavy.
I mean, he's not wrong. I never wore jeans. So do I get like
Do you get a medal?
yeah, like I'm just curious how this works here. Also, how
No, I
the
mean,
dad cut his jersey every single time so he wouldn't get a jersey tackle. Like he made it like skin tight, damn near.
it's so funny. It's so funny. But I mean, you gotta admit, like Kirk's a good guy, man. I mean, compared to
He's
the rest
annoying.
of the NFL,
His voice pisses
you
me
watched
off.
quarterback. Yeah, but you watched quarterback, right?
No, I skipped over
the
his parts because of
docuseries?
how annoying his voice is. No, it's
When he's just talking, his voice is annoying.
yes, it's annoying.
Or when he's like getting into his Kirk
But-
Cousins thing. Oh,
because
okay.
it's
All
like
right.
it's like he tries to be too funny, but it's like, yeah, Kirk, we get you're trying to be cool or something, but like his voice just like, I don't know, it just pisses me off. He's not even that good.
It's
He's just
like-
a mid quarterback.
But it's like the dad vibe thing, like the dad joke thing. Like obviously your
Then
dad
you
is
might
never
as well
going to
say
be
that
the
about
funniest
Philip
man in
Rivers,
the
then, but
room.
Philip Rivers doesn't annoy me. Philip
Pretty
Rivers got like
much.
10
I
kids.
mean, like, yeah. He's also packed on a few too. He took dad
well, I hope
bod
so.
to
He's
a
like 45
new
now.
level. And taking care of that many kids, I'm sure you don't have as much time to work out and do all those other things. But oh man, let's get into our second topic here in hour number one. We'll chat more about that a little bit later on. Michael Bradley has been outstanding since getting the job with the New York Red Bulls. He was again part of the MLS Next previously, ended up going on to win a championship. Learned directly from Jurgen Klopp during his early conversations and introductions to the Red Bull organization. He was again a part of that MLS Next team, won a championship, but he's been winning since being introduced to the top level side. And it's been cool to see. Julian Hall scored both goals. But I mean, what have been your biggest takeaways from what you've seen from Michael Bradley early on?
Well, it's only been one game, so I can't really say there's a massive takeaway. I mean, he won his first
Very
game.
early on.
But my only thing that the reason I mention this is because he gave three under 17-year-olds a start in their first game of the season, and they actually played relatively well. Dos Santos, Hall, and then the other guy I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not even gonna try. But he did have an assist, so there you go for the people at home who don't know. That guy had an assist, but I don't want to even try and pronounce his name. But no, I just think that I like managers that especially at a team that maybe have struggled a little bit in recent times, give a young kid a shout, and that's ultimately what Unai Emery did with Arsenal just before Arteta got there, and in the youth movement that kind of created Bukayo Saka, and Emile Smith Rowe. Why did he have to be injured so many times? Why did he have to be injured? He's not dead, but I'm just saying, why did he have to be injured so many times, man?
Yeah.
Even Martinelli, he was part of the youth movement. Like I like coaches that ultimately do that in the game of soccer because obviously Nate is big into Michigan-born players. Obviously, like can't say a bad thing about one of them.
Yep.
Like ultimately, probably even though Bryce Underwood sucked last year, he might say Bryce Underwood is like the greatest thing still. I don't know.
He's my best friend, man.
Exactly.
Me
See
and
what I
him.
mean? See what I mean?
We go way back.
But it's like a soccer fans and soccer people treat Nate. Obviously, you're a minor league baseball guy. When a Whitecaps player makes it all eventually into the Tigers, you kind of have like that little like that little bit of like you latch onto him a little bit more, because he's your own, I guess, right? I'm correct in that sense, right? That's the same way with soccer with players to academy. That's why there's always homegrown, and that's why Arsene Wenger's quote of Arsenal's built, not bought, because of his youth movement back in the day, and ultimately creating the youth academies, like how everyone emphasized the youth academies more. That's why Dortmund is so successful because of their youth academy. But I like coaches that give the youth academy players a shout, and every player. Every fan latches onto one of their own, and that's why they always chant. Eventually, if they become really good, they chant, he's so and so, and he's one of our own. He's one of our own. That's why people love them so much. And eventually, when they leave, and they get a little bit, it hits a little bit deeper compared to buying a 27-year-old for 5 million or 10 million, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And when they leave, it doesn't hit as much because a homegrown player is so much. And obviously, and when we talk back to the MLS, is another point that I wanted to bring up is 17, under 17, 18, 19, that kind of range. That's when those players start to get poached to go overseas. And ultimately, these three
Mhm.
players, they might not do anything the rest of the season. They might, flame out for all I know. But this is kind of the time and
Mhm.
the age where they get bought from other clubs over in Europe. Because your
Yeah.
MLS is known for one thing: European teams buying young players at a young age, and then sending their old players back here when they're like 33, 34 plus. That's one of the two things that they're known for. That's the two things they're known for. So maybe Bradley wants to give these guys, some run-ins and see what they can do at the national state or the national stage and in terms of the MLS and the game in this country, and eventually get bought by a big European side, because also the Red Bulls have the pathway to what is it? Austria? Salzburg's in Austria, and then eventually you
Mhm.
go to wait, no, I'm right on that. Yeah, Salzburg's in Germany. Then who's the
Mhm.
I'm messing up my countries. I'll get back to you, but no, ultimately, eventually get them over to Europe. I got to think of my countries right. I can't.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me a little bit of when we talked about Emma Hayes. Now, obviously, far different story managing the international women's side versus
Oh,
the New
I
York
was
Red
right.
Bulls.
Salzburg,
But
Austria, Leipzig, Germany. There we go. Gosh, I'm stupid.
attaboy, attaboy, we got it. We got it eventually. But the the a lot of the reason why Emma Hayes is in the position that she's in is because her willingness to again debut players, play players at the end of the bench that might not get the opportunity, give those chances to lead and be in high leverage situations and capitalize in those moments. Yes, to build confidence, but to also show that again, we are confident in our ability to develop. So much so that there's just this chronic next man up mentality when it comes to the US women's national team that they can just plug and place anybody. Obviously, in the MLS it's far different, but the one thing that I think Michael Bradley realizes, and it's hilarious because the article that I'm reading, he acknowledged the fact that he's probably a better manager than he was a player. Now, I don't know if he would I think a lot of people respect and admire what Michael Bradley did specifically for the US men's national team. So I don't know if I would go that far. Potentially, maybe at some point, but he grew up in the house of a coach. And so he realizes what's necessary and what needs to be done. But I think Michael Bradley acknowledges, and again in this article that I'm reading, that the game is changing. The game is getting faster. The game is getting quicker. It's quicker. It's getting more grueling simply because there are more games to be played than ever before. And you don't even have to go that far back. Just go back to when Michael Bradley played. I mean, the schedule was far less for any player versus what it is now. It's just grueling. And so you need to have players that are able to adapt to the speed of the game. And because of that, you need to be willing to put out your 17, 18, 19-year-old players, because if you don't trust them, and more specifically, if you can't get them good playing time or at least an opportunity to go play in high leverage situations, then you're not going to be able to create that machine that builds and that feeds off of itself. And so, to ever think that someone like Michael Bradley could be the next head coach of the US men's national team, I hate looking that far down the road. And simply because I'm not done on Mauricio Pochettino. We haven't seen what
Well,
the
he hasn't
team
been
has done
judged
in
yet.
2026. He hasn't been judged yet, right? So there's a lot to figure out. So it's ridiculous to think of what's going to happen after the World Cup, because the World Cup is the tournament, right? That's the thing that's on the horizon. But if Michael Bradley understands the structure of that team a lot, which I think New York is a perfect spot for him. Great stadium, great fan base, a lot of money to go around. If he can create something out of that, maybe Michael Bradley's onto something with that line about him being a better coach than a player. Not that he wasn't a great player. I mean, there's some great Michael Bradley moments out there. But if he understands, and if he can really get this train moving the way that I think a lot of people suspect he can, and if he really understands the most about how to develop youth players and not only do that, but give them significant minutes and win games with those players, that's the thing that as men's national team fans we've been clamoring for forever. How do we create a machine? because really outside of our, the top 5 or 10, there's kind of a steep drop off after that. Everyone's kind of on the same playing field. How do we continue to develop better? And so I think if Michael Bradley shows that he can do that, again, as we talked about, continuing along our theme of development, I think it might be worth a long, hard look at someone like Michael Bradley for USA Soccer, whether that be in a managerial perspective or in another perspective. And I hate that that's my first thought. I mean, the guy's one game into Major League Soccer. There's a lot more to be decided. There's a lot more to figure out about him, but I like what I'm seeing so far.
No, I think it's a fair conversation to say, well, could Michael Bradley be a future U.S. men's national team manager? Obviously, no one wants to really think about that right now because of what's going on this upcoming summer. We're less than 4 months away. I think it's where am I at in the countdown? 108, 108 days now. I don't remember. 108 days, 107, something like that. From the World Cup, but ultimately, I think a lot of people believe, and I still believe, I don't think Pochettino is the long term solution to our issues. I think he again was brought to the World Cup to A, not embarrass us, B, not get grouped, and C, you know what, maybe we can make a run at this thing. So that's ultimately why I think Pochettino was brought here. And I feel like a lot of American soccer fans have gotten back to the you know what, he has to be American to be a manager. We have to have an American manage the Americans. Well, if we look at
which I don't buy into that.
Huh?
Yeah. I don't buy into that.
So I'm saying I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that's what a lot of people are saying, and I don't agree with that. But ultimately, it's almost like what do Detroit fans want is their head coaches, tough, great guys. They take no nonsense. It's smash. It's punch you in the mouth. It's the bad boys basketball. It's run the football down your throat type of thing. Or get the Darren McCartys of the world to be the Red Wings coach because it's tough. Get in the gray areas, hit them. But for American soccer, it's got to have an American.
Yeah.
And Bradley, I think, is in terms of his managerial, in terms just from his persona, from interviews and stuff, he seems like he's a very, he ain't giving two shits about anything. Like he's there to do his job. Let's compete every single day. He's tough. And I think that's what a lot of Americans are going to latch on to. And obviously, I don't think Michael Bradley would be the manager even in 2030. I think you're looking at a 2034 type of guy. And if there would be a replacement for Pochettino, which I think he's gone after the World Cup cycle, I still think it's Matarazzo, who just suffered his first defeat as a manager over at Sociedad, which again could be the whole new manager bump for all I know. I'd like to see a little bit more from him at Sociedad. But no, I think it's a fair conversation to say, Michael Bradley could be a manager down the line for the U.S. men's national team. I mean, his dad was the manager in 2010. So,
there's a possibility if they want to go back that direction. I think it would be hard for USA Soccer to go back, right? Because I think they had a certain crop of coaches that were really close to the source, and I think Greg Berhalter being the latest of those examples. So I think it'd be hard for them to reverse course and go back that direction, the direction in which they just came, which is getting away from that old school of thought, which is breaking into, I feel like in the USA Soccer's mind, kind of the new landscape of this game, which is we got to go start, going after some of the top managers from around the world who have been in some of the top leagues and around the world know what that looks like. And so I think that's, it's not as necessarily a smartest man in the room type thing. I know we've been using that terminology a lot, but I think it's just USA Soccer realizing that the way we do it, there is no, I said this on our show before, and there's certain people that appreciate it, and I'm sure some people that didn't appreciate it. I know that JT was pretty adamant for the longest time on this show about there is a way in which we play this game, and we should play the game this way. But I've always tended to disagree with that. Like there is no our way, guys. Like there is no, yes, okay, we've had success from time to time, but there is no American school of thought on this game. Like we take from everybody else, which is okay. That's how sports and professional stuff, it's how it works. It's how, like, even my career, like, of course we're going to steal things. We're going to steal ideas. Like I don't have it all figured out. So that is, that's just something that we do because we realize we have to. So it might be tough, and I don't know where USA Soccer's mind is, but even if the day were to come that he would be someone that would be a great candidate for it, I just don't know if they would be willing to go back the other direction. They might view that as regressing, which, who knows at the end of the day. But let's take one more step aside. When we come back, we're going to talk about Man City a little bit. Ryan, you had mentioned the 115 fair financial play charges against Man City. There is a potentially lengthy verdict coming up, but could be a 60-point deduction for Man City, which obviously would mean a lot. But let's take a step aside. When we come back, we'll talk about that on the other end here on Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind.
Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics,
Letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail.
whether it's a championship win or a legendary play.
NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate.
Call 586-304-4405
And start watching today.
Back in live into our final topic here on Inside the Game. Nate Wangler alongside Ryan, a little bit about the place that ESPN said would be the best landing spot in the Premier League, but there's one specific reason why maybe it wouldn't be, and that has to do with the money, the dollar bills, y'all. Ryan, let's talk about Man City a little bit. What's going on over there?
Yeah, they could be facing a 60-point deduction as reported today. Look, the court case happened back in last December, so December 2024 is when the court case ended, but these are currently the charges: 54 breaches of failure to provide accurate financial information. Obviously, this all happened between 2009 and 2018. 14 breaches of accurate player and coach payment, 5 breaches of UEFA's regulations, financial fair play, 35 breaches, failure to cooperate with the Premier League, 7 breaches of EPL profit and sustainability rules. But yeah, they could be facing a 60-point deduction. I made a video on this earlier this morning, and I said, yeah, 60 points isn't enough to deduct them or relegate them. But then I didn't really put too much thought into it because I thought they had more points than that. But then I looked at it; they don't even have 60 points right now, so they'd be sitting at like -4 if it were to happen today. So yeah, they could certainly be relegated from that this year. But no, it's just. It's this constant drawn out process right now with Man City and the financial fair play and all that fun stuff and all these breaches. Like, everyone's been waiting 14, 15 months to hear everything. And obviously the quietness and the uncertainty of everything that's been going on, that's obviously something that's, I think hurting Man City because no one really knows what's going on. Look, it's the Premier League will deduct you points if you don't cooperate. We've seen it before with Everton. We've seen it with Nottingham Forest. Everton was going to get a 10-point deduction for being 20 million over the spending limit or whatever it was, and they didn't cooperate, and they got 10 points. And Nottingham Forest was 32 million over the spending, and they actually cooperated, so their deduction was, I think, 3 or 4 points, something like that. But because you cooperated with them, the issue is there's so many breaches and so many uncertainties, and I'm sure there's just so much evidence and so much appealing and so much stuff like that it's like, dude, this thing's going to last a while. It's kind of like the Connor Stallion situation. There's just so much information, so much evidence, so many appeals that I'm sure are probably going to happen within Man City, within the Premier League, and it's going to be a drawn-out process. And they've said that they can't relegate Man City down divisions. They just can't. So you have to give them a point deduction. Ultimately, if the EFL was like, you know what, F it, let's put them in League Two, then yeah, you could do that. But the only issue is if you do that, Man City again is a very attractive logo brand, I guess, right now, and you have some really
Yeah.
top players like an Erling Haaland, like a Bernardo Silva, like a Ruben Diaz, like a Donnarumma. There's a lot, but so that might hurt them. Of like, you know what, we can't really get rid of them because they create so much. I mean, look at Michigan. You can't have a postseason ban for Michigan because
Yeah.
what does the Block M do for you? It does so much, and it creates a lot of revenue, advertising, money. People travel all over the world or country for that. I mean, look at the Olympics, and there's a Block M flag behind the goal where Jack Hughes scores in. So it's like it's crazy. But Man City, I think, has so much pull and so much power that ultimately I don't think they'll get relegated. I just think that they'll get a big point deduction. To be honest with you. And they might, miss. They might not have Champions League for a season or two. Ultimately, I think Pep's gone after this year. I think it's kind of ran its course at this point. If he wins the league, he
Yeah.
wins the league. I think he's gone regardless. But at certain points, some things get stale. But back to the 60-point deduction thing. I mean, I don't think you can do much more with Manchester City outside of a point deduction.
Yeah, and I don't I think the biggest problem here isn't necessarily the fact that they know they're going to get punished. I know they're trying to maintain their innocence, but it's kind of like the Michigan thing, right? It's a situation of, obviously Michigan was sign stealing and Man City with misreporting funds. Very different story in that way. I think Michigan was just trying to gain an advantage, but it's the length of time that it's taken for these senior officials to come to a consensus on what's going on with Man City and what the punishment is going to be, because that's something that they've talked about, is that the three that are supposed to make this decision have been around for a long time. It's hard to get them in the same room to finally make, to review all of the evidence and the mountains and mountains of evidence that they have. I mean, over 50 times misreporting funds, like that's no small deal. And so to
Saudi
other
money.
people outside of, well, yeah, but to other people outside of it who look at it from the outside looking in, kind of like the Michigan thing, are like, it's a little ridiculous that they wouldn't get punished any more than that they wouldn't get relegated, that they wouldn't have the hammer come down on them. But from your perspective and from what you were talking about, it's also one of your biggest brands. So I think they realize that they would do more harm than good to send this team down a level. Again, the only problem that I come back to on this is just the length of time it's taking, because imagine a situation in which it could be on the day of the World Cup final. Imagine a day in which they make this decision or they come down with it like right before the season is supposed to begin. Like, that would put Man City in such a bad spot. Not only that, but like that would almost, if you're not going to relegate them, I feel like that would put them in the worst situation. If you're going to come down with whatever punishment you have just days or moments before the season is set to begin. So, but beggars can't be choosers at the same exact time. So that's the other side of this for Man City. Like, you're frustrated that this is being so drawn out. You're frustrated that you haven't received a verdict yet, or that you don't know what your punishment's going to be. But if you're not getting relegated, I'm sorry, but that's not really up to you. You let the process play out the way that it plays out. However you get in trouble is however you get in trouble. But beggars can't be choosers. So if you're going to do these things, and if you're going to have all these things hanging over your organization's head, which is, again, Ryan, that goes back to why we think it was just utterly ridiculous that anyone would even suggest that Man City is the best landing spot for a manager out there right now, because absolutely it's not. Much like for Michigan, it wasn't while they were going through what they were going through. Why do you think Sharon Moore became the head coach? You think anybody else was clamoring for that job? No. They had to promote the next guy up because
guy.
They didn't have anybody else. So it is, beggars cannot be choosers. You did these things. You're going to get the verdict when you get it. Hey, congratulations, by the way. Everyone thinks it would be a bad idea to send you down a level. So at least you have that going for you. But you made your bed, you sleep in it. And so whenever the decision comes down, it comes down. But as for Man City, you don't really have a leg to stand on. If you're going to start complaining about, it's taking so long for it to happen, okay, so what? You were the one who did it. You were the one who's been misreporting funds or lying or any of these other things. That's you. That's on your shoulders. And so that's the part that I find interesting about this.
I just would really like to see the EPL table from a week in, week out standpoint of just like negative points, negative points, negative points. They play a full season in the Prem, they go down a
Yeah.
level. They get these negative points in the Championship, they go down another level. Like just like I just think that'd be great. And ultimately, you'd lose all your players, and Man City would go back to what it was before the oil money. And the funny thing
Yep.
is it happens between 2009. That's when everything kind of starts, and that's just kind of when their takeover started happening with Man City, and the oil money starts coming in, and then Man United bottle the league, and Man City comes in and wins it, snatches it. Which again, the Aguero moment is one of the most overrated moments in all of sports. Just go back and just watch the way QPR was playing. It's one of the most overrated moments in all of sports. Once they realized they were safe, they didn't care anymore. They're like, just win it at this point. Who cares?
Uh-huh.
But no, it's just that I to be honest with you, I don't think anything truly happens. And if it does, I think it's the moment like Pep leaves, is already out of the team, and it's kind of like Harbaugh. But it's like once he's out, I
Yeah.
think they might be like, yeah, here's your point deduction. Here's your punishment. But I just don't see it happening this year. I don't see it happening, anytime soon. And obviously, I've seen if you're going to deduct Everton 10 points, which eventually got appealed down to 6, and if you're going to deduct Nottingham Forest this amount, Man City's going to have a massive amount of deduction. It's got to be 10
Yeah.
times, maybe 20 times the amount. And ultimately, what my main goal is for it to be negative 100, negative 200, and then just going down the leagues and just getting relegated time and time again. But I ultimately don't know if you can just truly just let's put a team down in League Two. I think that's a little bit too unfair. I think I'd rather them just be playing in the leagues and just going down the league, just down the table. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I mean, you can sell all your players and probably make a nice bit of profit. Then take all that money,
Yeah.
then just sell it and just let someone else deal with the mess. But no, I just think that ultimately nothing's going to happen with Man City as of right now. I think everything will happen in the summer like it normally probably will. But it's just Man City just got too much power, and you see it with a lot of
Yeah.
officiating. There's just a lot of fishy calls that go their way or go against the team that they're playing, which then you go back like a week or two later and it happens against a Liverpool or an Arsenal or a Man United, and it's like, well, how is that called that way when if you go back a couple weeks ago, Man City got this or something happens, then you go 2 weeks down the line and Man City gets the benefit of the doubt. There's just too much fishiness that goes on in terms of officiating that I just don't think they can have. Man, they're just too big of a brand to lose something like that. And obviously, I would like to see them get deducted so many points, but ultimately, I just don't see that happening or anything like that. But it'd be one person can dream, man. Only a person could dream of a day where Man City just gets relegated
Yeah.
and relegated and relegated. But hey,
It's
everyone knows Saudi
yeah.
money and oil money just aren't. It's not always the cleanest, I would say.
it's the same thing as if like the whole LaMelo Ball situation. Like he
Him
swerves
driving
into
his
the other
car?
lane and it
he's an
smashes. Hold on,
idiot.
it smashes into a car and then doesn't get into any legal trouble whatsoever. Now I realize that it's more of a insurance issue at that point, but
But
still,
LaMelo Ball's an idiot.
still though, like if that was like me, if I swerved into the next day, fucking took a lady
Hey,
out,
look at Stephon
I'm sure
Diggs,
I would
man. Stephon Diggs had his
Yeah.
court case pushed back to after the Super Bowl, which was supposed to
Yes.
happen in the regular season. They're like, nah, let's go after. They didn't do anything in the Super Bowl, which
Nah.
made it even better. But no, you're right.
Oh man,
You're right. It just comes
it's not
back
equal
to
for everybody. Yeah,
like there's a certain level of like brand recognition that can happen and how much pull that you really can have. That's why people believe so much into the conspiracy theories and believe so much into all this stuff, all these extra stuff. Like it just happens, and it's like Man City's gonna walk
Yeah.
away with this just fine. Like ultimately, that's what it's gonna be, and it's just Man City. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. In terms of nothing's gonna happen. That's all I want to say. Like
Yeah.
I want to say that
Yeah.
they're gonna get this punishment, and I think they deserve this punishment and that punishment. But ultimately, I just don't see it happening. They're gonna come away with not getting punished, or they're just gonna get a slap on the wrist. It's like, here's 20-point deduction. You missed out on the Champions League one time. That's another thing. It's like there's certain like it's got to happen sooner rather than later because certain clubs need Champions League money. Like you look at a club like an Aston
Yeah.
Villa who hasn't done any wrong, even though I highly dislike them. I highly dislike Emi Martinez. I highly dislike Unai Emery. I highly dislike Onana. Like I don't like them, but at the same time, they should be getting Champions League because they deserve it. They're a good side. And
Yep.
if a team is breaking the rules, they should be deducted fairly and routinely. And a team that deserves to be in the Champions League should deserve to be in the Champions League, even though Villa's been in there before. But like you think of, a bubble team that might not make it, might make it in. You know how much money the Champions League money is? It's so much. And that can be game-changing money for your club going forward, whether that is that particular year. Gosh, can't speak. I need some water here. We need a break so I get some water. Or down the line. So that's just the way it is, and I just hope it happens sooner rather than later. The only issue I have is if it happens this year. Is the only reason people are going to say Arsenal won the Premier League is because Man City got a point deduction. That's the only issue I have, and it's a fair argument to say. But at the same time, you can just say, well, don't bend the rules and don't cheat, and this doesn't happen. I mean, the court case happened 2 years or a year and a half ago almost. So it's like that's the only issue I have because I know that's what everyone's going to say, and then I hope ultimately just Arsenal goes and win the league next year if it happens because I think Pep will be gone. But that's the only thing that I'm like prepared to be annoyed about. It's like, well, Arsenal only won the league because City was deducted and you didn't win it fairly. Well, they cheated, we didn't cheat, so it's like that's the only thing that I'm like hoping does not happen. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind a Premier League if they win without Man City being deducted, or if they win it without them being deducted or with being deducted. I could care less.
We'll take a second and go get that water. First, let's tell you about Barca Academy, proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network and the official academy of FC Barcelona in the United States, designed for boys and girls. See, I can't talk either. Ages 6 to 18. Barca Academy camps follow and replicate the FC Barcelona game model, the same philosophy used by Barca's professional coaching staff. Right now, you can save $30 on registration by using promo code FCB30 or scan the QR code on your screen. Find a camp near you, fcbarcelona.us/camps.
In Barca camp, I sing my song grown on and off of the field. Don't miss the time to register.
Sign up now for Barca Camp.
What did you do?
There I go again. I done did it again. Turn the damn mic off. Anyways, welcome back in here, Sports Nation TV.
Dude, you give me like a heart attack
second hour.
like, once a day on this show.
Oh,
And that's one of them. And I'm
into,
like, I
hour
didn't
number
do
2.
anything.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm always good for once in a while, though. But it happens. I feel like if there's one thing I've learned a lot in this industry, but the one thing that I just can't seem to remember to do is to turn my damn mic on, which I mean really kind of defeats the whole purpose if you think about it, because then you ain't nothing gonna happen. But let's get into topic number 1. Talking about taking Darren Peterson number 1 overall. You do not think that this is a wise idea. We're going to talk a little bit about the draft today. Wasn't really the first one that came to my mind, but I'll give you the floor. Why are you not taking him number 1 overall?
because he subs himself out every 2 seconds. Like, he makes a three and then just does this all the time. Like, dude, just go play the game. You're arguably the best player on the floor every time you play. Outside of maybe playing AJ DeMonsta in BYU, maybe that's the only one. But, like, this kid is so talented. This kid, I think, could be a stud. He's a 6'8" guard that can shoot the three, can drive down the lane. He's like a Cade Cunningham. That's basically what he is. He's like a Cade Cunningham. He's built that way. But I don't know if he's just trying to protect his draft stock. I don't know if his teammates don't really like him, because I've seen that a couple times. I don't know if he doesn't fit in well with them. I don't know if he just, like, is just, being weird. I don't know. But he just subs himself. He makes a three. It's the same thing. He makes a three in front of his bench every single time and just does this. Like, look, that's going to be questioned in all of your NBA draft interviews. That's going to be questioned every single time during the draft process. That's all you're going to ultimately hear. You're going to hear that every single time. You're going to hear, well, Darren Peterson, why did he sit? Why are you subbing yourself out all the time? Like, these are big games. You didn't even play against Arizona. You didn't. And that was an awesome game. Kansas came back from 15 down to beat the number one team. Give the Wildcats their first loss of the season. But I'm not taking this kid number one overall because he sits himself out. I don't think he's a good teammate. I don't think the team really likes him. And Bill Self yesterday is like, dude, get in the play. I think Darren Peterson's comparison is a Kyrie Irving, a really talented player, an awesome NBA player, or awesome basketball player, I should say. He's unbelievable. What he does is unbelievable. But there's like that certain aspect where it's like, dude, you just seem a little weird. I don't think your teammates truly like you. Like when Kyrie was traded from Cleveland to Boston, like he was expected to be the guy. He was expected to be like the leader of that young group of players, the young Jaylen Browns, the young Jason Tatums. And he was just a complete and utter douchebag. And he had to be traded for it. That's why everyone hates Kyrie in Boston. Then he complains why he's hated in Boston. Well, dude, look, you did it to yourself. But Darren Peterson, I'm taking AJ DeBonsta over you. I'm taking Cam Boozer over you. I'm taking Caleb Wilson over you. Because I don't know if you're going to be on the floor. And if I'm taking a number one overall pick, which it's so hard to have a number one overall pick in the NBA, as we've seen as a Pistons fan, I don't want to have that draft stock and that draft value to take you number one overall. I think you're a stud, and I think you have the potential. Maybe it's just so he can protect himself for the NBA, but, like, this has got to stop. He's injured half the time. He doesn't play half the time. Then when he does play, he subs himself out after a couple minutes after he plays really well for an extended period of time. It's like, man, just go out there and hoop, man. Kansas could be a national championship contender if you were out on the floor, but they're not. Their ceiling is probably an Elite 8, Sweet 16. I'd say more Elite 8. But you're not out there. If you're out there, national championship contender.
Yeah, and one of the most concerning parts of his game, at least when you talk about scouts and when they've looked at him and they've talked about his ability at the next level, is your availability. As we mentioned earlier on this show, the number of games that you're playing in college versus the number of games that you're playing in the National Basketball Association, it's two different universes. You have an 82-game season. You could potentially have 3 7-game series just to get to the NBA Finals, let alone the finals itself. So realistically, you could have 2 full seasons. You could potentially play over 100 games in the stretch of a year. So I understand he had a hamstring injury back in November that sidelined him. So obviously there was a reason why he wasn't available to play. But outside of that, if your benchmark for having to play is I need to be 100%, I'm cramping, something else is going on, to think that NBA scouts the NBA scouts look at that. They pay attention to that. They realize that. They notice that. And so he is very much, and I think Kyrie, to your point, that is a great example. I didn't even think about that. I mean, Kyrie had a chance to learn from one of the greatest coaches in the history of this game, if not the greatest coach in the history of this game, and Coach K at Duke. And yet he was always a me guy. And every single place that he's gone in the National Basketball Association and everywhere in his career for the most part, he's always been a me guy. That's just who Kyrie is. And so did it work out for him in Cleveland? Yeah, obviously. I mean, when you got the king on the court next to you, I think it becomes a little bit easier to go out and win games. And I'm not going to take anything away from what they did, but that's what this kind of reeks of. You can have all the talent in the world, but number one, if you don't have the work ethic, if you take plays off, to your point, if you substitute yourself out, if winning these games is not a priority, and if you're going out and losing to mediocre Cincinnati while you're sitting on the bench with a heater on your lap so that you can get rid of these cramps that you have, you're not a dog. You're not a killer. You're not a guy that an NBA organization can rely on. You know, I'll give you another example with this, Ryan. Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis like jams his pinky finger and he's out for the rest of the season.
Davis, not young Anthony
Late,
Davis.
Okay, maybe not young Anthony Davis,
but once he got
this
to the Lakers,
iteration,
yes.
Yeah, this iteration of Anthony Davis, who is making $55 million to watch the game just like you or I. So but I mean, he's young though. I mean, if he's doing this stuff now, imagine him years down the line.
He's
I mean,
only
it's
19.
exactly. And so that's exactly it. You're 19 years old. You're not 100%. I don't care. Go out and play. You know, go out and be a killer. So no, I don't think I would take him over. I think Boozer, I would take number one overall before him. Not to mention some of the other options that are there too. So it's a very
Fleming's over him too, man. Like,
yeah, it's very concerning. And I know that we've entered the era of rest and recuperation and load management and all those other things, but you're only going to get the benefit of the doubt in that way if you're a vet, right? Like if you're a star or if you're a star, right? If you're not either of those two things and you're fresh into the NBA, like you don't get the benefit of being like, yeah, I'm just gonna, even if you're a lottery pick, I don't feel like you get the benefit of just being like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit back and not do anything unless you want your NBA career to be a wash. And so the fact that there's already this sense of entitlement in college basketball, what the hell are NBA scouts going to think? Oh, you think he's going to get any better when he lands here? No, he's going to act the same exact way that he's acting right now. And so, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it is taking plays off, being lazy, doing all those other things. Yes, of course it doesn't sit well with NBA scouts. Obviously, from an individual talent perspective, I mean, the kid can rip it. I mean, he's great, but are you on the court? That's the biggest question mark.
I think what people why do people hate the NBA? It's the whole rest. It's the whole load management. It's all this. It's not playing at 100%. Look, dude, I saw Jack Hughes get smacked in the face and lose all his teeth, and he goes out there and scores a goal. And you got Anthony Davis who breaks a fingernail and is out for a whole year. Like there's a reason why a lot of Americans are starting to turn away a little bit from the NBA. Look, and I think that's why the NBA is looking more at the international game, and we'll talk about some international here in terms of football later in this hour. But Darren Peterson's going to be a reason why more people tune away from basketball and tune away from the NBA. In college, I think you're still trying to prove yourself in terms of trying to get to the pro league, whether that's college football, whether that's college basketball. I think you're still trying to prove yourself, and that's why I think they play so much harder. And you don't see people just sit out like it is. But now that you're in the NIL era, you're getting paid millions of dollars. I'm sure Darren Peterson is getting paid $1 million. I know the payments in college basketball aren't as much as college football, and rightfully so. But I think that if he was not getting paid NIL money, I don't think we would see this. But I don't know. Maybe it is just to protect himself for the NBA. Maybe he doesn't think Kansas can win it all. But, I mean, they have a good team. Bill Self does a hell of a job year in, year out. I mean, they're, I think, 3 or 4 years removed from a national championship. Well, whether you want to agree that he cheated or not, that's up for you to decide. But I ultimately think that this kid needs to be on the floor. He's a stud. Yeah. He's a great player. He could potentially be a star in the NBA. He could. He really could. He could be one of the best point guards in the NBA in 5 or 6 years. He could. But at the same time, like, there's just a mentality thing in this guy's head, which we'll have to let it all play out and see what he does. But, man, you got to be on the floor. Your teammates need you. You're in one of the toughest conferences in college basketball. You got Arizona, Houston, and Iowa State in it. Those are 4 really good potential Final Four teams. But you're out there and you're just crying. I can't go out. If I'm not 100%. Dude, players are out there like Tyrese Halliburton blew his Achilles out because he wasn't 100%. He still went out there and played. Yeah, you could say it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals. It's a different story. But it happens time and time again. Like, Kobe was out there playing on torn stuff all the time. We had certain players who couldn't bounce one way because their body hurt and couldn't allow them to turn over their shoulder to the right, or they couldn't fade away from a certain spot, or NFL players. Calvin Johnson talks about it all the time. He's like, if I would tell Stafford, like, man, if I could not go over on my left foot, but I want to be out there for distraction. If I'm running around to the left, do not throw me the football. But if I'm on the right, you can throw it to me. But I want to be out there for distraction. A lot of players put their bodies on the line in all different sports. But Darren Peterson, dude, you got all the talent in the world. You're getting probably paid $1 million plus. You got to go out there and prove it, my man. And that's why Bill Self was arguing with you yesterday. He's like, just play the damn game. You just hit a 3. We're killing Houston. And ultimately, if I'm a Kansas player, I'm going up to Bill Self, like, dude, don't even play this kid. Just cut him the rest of the way. Let him prepare for the NBA draft. We want to take this thing over and try to make it a national championship run. That's what I would do if I'm a Kansas player.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm almost waiting for the Bill Self crash out. I like when does that happen? I guess Kansas. Yeah, I guess a little bit yesterday. I mean, I guess they're still technically good enough to make a run if it really comes down to it. But I mean, as one of those guys who's been in the game for as long as he has, yeah, I would consider him on the OG list. And so there's no way that he looks at this and he appreciates it, because it just seems like, again, he's treating it almost kind of like a, almost kind of like a G League thing. Like this is his tryout to get to the next level for Darren Peterson. It's not necessarily about going out and winning a national championship. And this is the switch in college athletics that I think a lot of people notice, is like, kids are not interested in going out and winning national championships anymore. They just want to get to the NBA, right? So, and I think he's just one of those individual examples that he just wants to get to that level, and he can get to that level. But it is one of those, it's not quite to the same level of hockey, the physicality in the National Basketball Association. I'd say not quite. It's not even near. But when you talk about, again, just the amount of games they play, when you get into the playoffs, like, you just need someone who's going to be willing to sacrifice their body the way that they are. And again, from what we've seen from him, yeah, 100%. It's just not, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a good fit. And if I'm an NBA scout, and it's the same way in the National Football League, and it's the same way everywhere else. Like, if you take plays off and if you're lazy, they're not going to want you. And it's interesting because when you look at drafts in professional sports, especially in the United States, you always see the smear campaigns. Because organizations will hire writers for the express purpose of not necessarily digging up dirt, but like just kind of, hey, let's make this kid look not so great so that maybe he drops a few spots and we can pick him up where we're at. Now, obviously, in the NBA with the lottery and everything, it's you never know until you end up figuring out where you're going to select and all of that. But that's a very real thing that happens. That's a very real thing that goes on. But for this particular young man, he's not making it very hard for anybody who wants to see that. Like, we all see it. We see it in the games. We see it in the way he treats himself. We see it in the, I'm not 100%. I'm feeling 90% tonight, so I can't play. So I'm going to watch my guys go, struggle against a team that they shouldn't struggle against. Yeah, I mean, or like, yeah, exactly it, right? So you're not making it all that hard on anybody. Like, I don't need a writer to tell me that you're lazy and that it's not a priority for you to be out there and be with your teammates. I don't need that. Like, I see it in front of me. So that's the really hard thing. And if I'm this kid's agent or if I'm Bill Self at the same time, I'm like, dude, like, we don't even need professional writers to try and tear you down before the draft. Everybody can see it. So like, you need to finish the season out strong and just be better. But it's I think the selfishness and the me mentality is something that also organizations realize, because if you end up with this kid and he's a bust, I mean, that is my biggest nightmare. I feel like if I was someone who was running an NBA organization or any other organization, like if I burn a number 1 overall pick and the kid ends up going on to be, just an absolute bust and a me guy and someone that's not going to pan out, I mean, you're fired, and you're also going to be on every YouTube compilation about the worst NBA draft picks of all time moving forward, because that's just how that goes.
Or you're Troy Weaver and you just get fired regardless of how good your number 1 overall pick does, and eventually becomes a superstar. So, or you just take Killian Hayes, who can't shoot the basketball at all. But no, I think that Darren Peterson is going to be a guy that American basketball fans hate just because of the way he's going to play in the NBA. That's honestly what I think. To be quite frankly with you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Getting into our second topic here coming up next. First, let's tell you lastly about Man City Soccer Camps. They're a proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network, bringing world-class training inspired by Man City global football philosophy to players across the United States. Open to boys and girls of all skill levels, these camps focus on technical development, decision-making, and playing the game the City way. Right now, you can save $30 on registration by using promo code MCNSN30. Again, that's MCNSN30. Scan the QR code on your screen. Find a camp near you at usacamps.mancity.com. Back in live on Inside the Game here, episode 236, National Soccer Network, Nate Wangler. That's Ryan Glinsky, getting into topic number 2 here on the show today. In hour number 2, the Pistons ended up losing the other day to the San Antonio Spurs, what could very well be a last night. Isn't that still technically the other day?
It happened less than 12 hours ago, so I wouldn't say the other day.
Okay, fair enough. Last night to the San Antonio Spurs, what very well could be a NBA Finals preview between these two teams. Obviously, Ryan doesn't think they're going to get there, but if they do get there, it very well could be against the Spurs. And you put in here very straight up, Wemby is soft.
Oh, 100%.
I think Victor Wembanyama is soft. Really?
Yeah.
Explain.
Did you watch the game yesterday? Did you watch any Twitter highlights? You'll see exactly what it is. The kid gets bullied off the ball. You're 7'4". How are you flopping over the floor? You are 7'4". Duran babied you. Like anything outside of the paint, like, okay, there's a couple plays where it's like, Wemby, you can do whatever you want because he's just tall and just dunks. Like, but there's certain plays where the guy's flopping. Like, Duran pushes him and he just goes up. Dude, you're 7'4". How can you go down like that? I get it. He's not, the bulkiest dude in the world, but you should not be getting moved off the ball by a guy like Duncan Robinson and flailing your head up in the air and your arms up in the air. What are you doing, man? Like, he didn't like the physicality. He constantly complains to the refs, last night about the physicality and everything. And it's like, kid, it's the NBA. You're 7'4", man. You should be a little bit tougher than this. I don't know if the French national team the French men's soccer national team is, wearing off on you a little bit, but it's like there's certain athletes where it's like based on their size and their physical stature, where flopping just pisses me off. Like a LeBron flopping, like him putting his head back like this when he gets breathed on, dude. You're an effing freight train. You should not be flopping like that. And then I got Wemby, who is a mountain of a man, who could literally just probably jump up with his arm all the way up and hit the top of the back, probably hit the shot clock. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not giving you sympathy for that. And it's like the Pistons, they're going to do what the Pistons do. They're going to try to rough you up. They're going to try to be physical. But you complaining to the refs with your arms up in the air when a guy like Ron Holland pushes you a little bit, it's like, dude, come on. You should not be moving like that. And I get flopping's a part of the game. I know Elliot Cadeau does that a lot too. But again, Elliot Cadeau, smaller point guard. He's a smaller physical stature. There's certain players that if it's a flop, it's a flop. But it's like, I'm not as angry at it. But when I see a LeBron do it, or KD doesn't really flop that all that. But if I were to see a KD do it, or I were to see obviously Wemby do it, it's like, dude, quit flopping. You are 7 foot 4 inches. You should not be moving like that. And you flop.
The level of physicality in the NBA playoffs is far different than the European game. It's far different than the Olympics. It's far different than any other competition, even the NBA regular season, right? And this is why we always have this conversation about, the regular season versus the postseason, because the postseason is a completely separate season than the regular season, in my personal opinion, because everything that you see in the postseason, what do the referees do? They swallow their whistle. Every year they swallow their whistle. That's just how the playoffs are different in the National Basketball Association. It's why people look forward to that time of the year, at least the ones that follow basketball and like watching it. And so when I think about that, for Victor Wembanyama, you got to get used to this type of treatment. I get it. I saw it. And the Pistons clearly had one intention yesterday, and that was to bully Victor Wembanyama. And we saw that. And we saw, obviously, what Cade was doing and how physical he was playing. And they did. They beat the hell out of him. And they're going to do that. And that's going to be the strategy going into the playoffs. But if Victor Wembanyama can't take this physicality during the regular season, what is the postseason going to look like? That's really what it comes down to, is because there's some of those things they're not going to call in the playoffs. And so I understand you're 7-4. I understand you're extremely skilled. And, his perimeter closeout defense is something that I think is the most valuable part of his game. Because what are you telling me? Like, he's like Michael Jordan at the end of Space Jam, like when he got the super long arm and he was able to dunk. That's kind of what Victor Wembanyama's got going on. I mean, he can stretch across the stadium, but how can he match up to that physicality of postseason play? It doesn't really matter if you're 7'4" if you can't bang, because what, you're just going to be a 7'4" spot up 3-point shooter? Like, the Spurs, they need you to be more than that. And so, you can bitch and complain and whatever, get the calls now, and congratulations, you got the regular season win. But what does that look like when you get into the playoffs? Because even the NBA playoffs, again, to those who don't watch the NBA, watch the playoffs. Okay, just give it a chance. Watch the playoffs, because I know the regular season sucks and it's always sucked, but just watch the playoffs, because it's a far different brand. It's a far different story. But I like the way that the Pistons approached him. I just think it's going to be more effective when you get into that portion of the calendar year versus maybe right now, because they're going to be a little bit more lenient, or not lenient, but they're going to be a little bit more knee-jerk reaction with the whistle during the regular season, because they always are. But for Wemby, it's going to be a test. It's going to be a test, because it's hard to, at 7'4", as much as you're like, okay, you're super tall, you're not as low to the ground. If we're going by center of gravity,
that's going to hurt a little bit more compared to a 6'2" player heading to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And so if I'm going up against Jalen Duren, of course he's not nearly as tall, but he's a lot lower to the ground, and he's probably a lot stronger than Wemby is too. So it can work for you. It can also work against you. And I could see where it could work against him against the Pistons in a playoff series. But again, the only way they would ever meet up is in the NBA Finals. So yeah, it's something that the Spurs are going to have to look at and try to get him to a point to where he can respond to that, because that's going to be an eye-opening experience for him, because really the only championship he's competed for was the Olympics. But FIBA in their rules is far different than the NBA. Far, Far
Yeah,
different.
the
you know, the
goaltend
European
messes
game.
with me, man. The goaltend of the
Yeah.
Olympics messes with me because you can grab it straight off the rim.
Yeah.
Mara would
Weird.
cook. Adai Mara would cook in the Olympics with Spain.
Yeah,
He'd be so
yeah.
good because he could do
Gosh.
whatever he wants. But there's a couple, and I know there's probably one takeaway that I have to say that'll probably create an argument. So I'll say that one for the last part. But yesterday also proved my point that I talked about yesterday. You and I both talked about on the show yesterday. Made a video about is they're still lacking that second go-to guy. They really are. The Pistons. The Pistons, that is, I should say.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
yesterday, what is Cade Cunningham really good at? Like where are the Pistons so dominant? Cade driving down the lane, kicking. That's what he's so good at. And when you have a 7'4" monster down there, that alters a lot of things, and that kind of creates like a bit of a log jam. As much as I love Cade Cunningham, as much as I like his play, he isn't a fantastic three-point shooter. He's good. He's not like this lights-out, dead eye from behind the arc. I think he's like 32, 33%, which isn't the best thing in the world. Usually you want that a little bit higher, I would say.
Yeah.
And again, I don't need Cade to be Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. That's not what I'm trying to get at. But what I'm getting at here is in the playoffs is, you know, there's an Evan Mobley chilling down there for the Cavs. That can alter stuff. If you get to the Spurs in the NBA Finals, I don't think you win 7 games. I don't think you win 4 out of 7. I don't. But that second go-to scorer, yeah, we can surround all the shooters we want. But last night's game, again, I'm not saying the world's ending. Please, people, do not think I'm saying the world's ending.
I think it
for the
is.
Pistons. I don't think that. But last night's game was like, you know what? We need another score than just Cade creating his own shot. As much as I like Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert, the Michigan guys, they can't create their own shots. Hustleman Ron Holland can't create his own shots. Tobias can a little bit. Duran can't create his own shot. Asar can't create his own shot. But, like, that's why I needed them to add an MPJ at the deadline. And it wouldn't have costed that much. Tobias and first or 1 or 2 firsts, maybe. But if they wanted a Jaden Ivey, sure, I would have been have them all. But it's like I needed another score last night, and that didn't happen. Then I look on the Spurs side, Devin Vassell, their 4th or 5th best player, made 7 threes, I think. And like that's ultimately could be the difference in a game, in a playoff game or not, in a playoff series or not. And that's the only issue that I had last night is, again, I don't think the world is ending for the Pistons. I don't think they're this bad team. I don't think that this takes away from them being the 1 seed come playoff time. But last night, again, just proved my fear a little bit more that we need another score. And Cade Cunningham can't do it all of himself against a team like the Spurs or like the Thunder or a Celtics with maybe potentially a Jason Tatum. That's all. That's all I had to prove my point on yesterday.
Yeah, Duncan Robinson is a good shooter. I can't hit a shot to save my life with him on NBA 2K for whatever reason. That new shooting mechanic is stupid.
Division 3 guy?
Yeah, can't hit a shot with him to save my life. I actually went out and I got Zach LaVine in a trade. So him and Cade have been a good 1-2 combo. Yeah, so anyways, we're 6th in the East. Okay, so we just climbed our way out of that play-in tournament. So that's good. We're moving on up. Little 8-game winning streak. Not that anybody cares. But anyways, getting deeper into this conversation, I agree. My biggest fear is this, Ryan. I said this yesterday. We're going to get into the postseason. We're going to maybe win a playoff series or 2, but eventually we're going to hit this point where we need someone to go out and get a bucket that isn't Cade. You know, we're going to need a Robin. We're going to need someone where Cade's being doubled and now he needs to find another option. You know, who's going to be that guy to hit that shot? I just don't know. You know, I just don't know. It could be anybody, but it's the I just don't when I look at the Thunder, I feel like the Thunder won it because of their youth, but also their numbers and their depth. But even if we're going to use the Thunder example, I think the Thunder are a more talented team just from being able to score and the dynamic and the flexibility of the different players that they have and the way that they filled the roster out. I just think the Pistons are, again, they've adopted this mentality, much like they did when, the going to work Pistons. It does feel kind of like that vibe. But yesterday was another example, and
yeah, but they
saw
traded
that.
for Rashid at the deadline.
They did. It's true. That's true. They did. Yeah.
My buddies and I, we did. We didn't know who got ejected the most times in the NBA. Found out it was Rasheed Wallace. So a little tidbit of information for the day.
I don't doubt it. So, yeah, they need us. They just need another. They need another option bad. But now I think we're kind of stuck. And I wouldn't even say stuck. I mean, we still have a really good squad, but like that's where this starts to become concerning, because you can beat the majority of the NBA with the way that you're structured right now. But my fear is that we're going to look back at the end and go, man, we really could have used one more piece in this puzzle.
Yeah, and this is where I saved it for this part. Yeah, last night just proved my point of why they drive down the lane and it's like they get breathed and it's a foul. Like, dude, we counted. There was at the end of the third quarter, my buddy goes next to us. He goes, how much you guys want to bet that there's in the last minute and 10 seconds, there's going to be 4 whistles? And we're like, all right, let's see what happens. We counted 5 in the last minute and 10. Every possession, foul. And they weren't like, I didn't think they were deserving fouls. Like maybe 1 or 2 seemed like, I think more of 1 that there was a foul. But like outside of that, it's like there should not have been that many fouls in that last minute 10. There should not have been that many whistles. If the ball goes out of bounds, that's fine. If someone throws it away, that's fine. If someone calls a timeout, that's part of the game, that's fine. But these were fouls. And then it's like, oh, wait, they're challenging for a flagrant foul. When in the seats, it's like, that's not a flagrant foul. It's like, that just proved my point yesterday of why the NBA just pisses me off so much. And I'm telling you, it's going to piss me off even more because I might go to the game on Wednesday, and guess who plays Wednesday? The Thunder. And I'm going to be rage-baited even more by this bum that is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I have to see this every time he drives. And if God, this is why I really dislike it. And it's like, gosh, this is why I really dislike the NBA is all these ticky-tacky fouls, man. Like, it's super annoying, man. And it just, I don't know. Last night just rage-baited a lot. I know I rage-bait a lot of people, but, like, I do it with takes, not just, like, the individual product out there. Look, man, people don't pay certain X amount of dollars to see my TikTok videos or my Instagram or my Facebook, which, by the way, Sports Nation Facebook, keep lighting that thing up. We're almost at like 430 followers or something, which like a month ago we were at like 20. So keep lighting that stuff up. But no, it's just like that just rage baited me so much. And like LJ Kaysen does it all the time too. And it's like, dude, come on, man. Like, stop cocking your head back every time you drive. Just pisses me off.
The NBA could certainly afford to just ref and change some of the rules around to be able to support the physical part of the game a little bit more. And Adam Silver talked about how the NBA came to a crossroads once upon a time where it almost just, it felt like it was getting too physical. Like it felt like a street fight every single game. And teams were actually using that as but like when you're using it as a strategy to win games, it's like, okay, I get the Jordan rules and the history of it and everything, but it's like, does that kind of take away from the spirit of the game a little bit? I would think so. Yeah, but like punching a guy in the head.
But that strengthened MJ. MJ said that himself. He's like, that made me a better player, made me stronger, made me want it more, made me want to be a little more creative.
Yeah, but it doesn't take any skill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know what also doesn't take skill, Nate? When I get fouled 10 feet from the basket and everyone stops and I take 3 steps and put a layup up and it's like, count it in the foul. Like, that's not skill.
No, I get it. No, that's what I said.
The
NBA needs to change the rules because it's all catered around off. It's all catered around offense.
100%.
So that's, and if you look at college basketball, it's funny because I've had conversations with people that have been in those rooms too. Believe it or not, coming into this year, a lot of college referees were actually instructed to not call nearly as many of those ticky-tack fouls. Like they're actually starting to allow hand checking in college basketball now. And so that's why if you see less calls on more physical plays, it's because a lot of those things are being allowed now.
And it's awesome.
The college basketball is almost kind of going back the opposite direction because they realized that they were kind of becoming the NBA. Yes.
Not only
I
is the
remember
environment better, but also
Yes.
the game is better. But the only issue I have with it is when Mara gets all ball and then Cam Boozer slaps Marez Johnson in the head and there's no foul on that one, but there's a foul on Mara's all ball. That's where I have issues with it. I'm not saying that's the reason why Michigan lost, but if you're going to call it one way, you got to call it the other one. And again, Michigan benefited from that not calling on the head. But the issue is that would be Boozer's 5th foul. I would much rather take Marez Johnson at the free throw line than a Cadeau 3 I'd much rather have Boozer out of the game than the Cadeau 3. I'm just saying. I would much rather have Boozer out of the game for the last 4.5 minutes. But you're right about the college game. It's more physical. But the annoying part is where I'm watching it and I'm like, bro, if this is the NBA, that's called. Like in the NBA, that's called.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone says now. And it's like, but I like it more. And you see a lot more people want to watch college basketball. Not only is Michigan good for my sake, but I like watching college basketball a little bit more because I don't see a Wembanyama drive down the lane, get nudged a little bit, flail his arms up in the air. Like, he looked like a soccer player yesterday. I'm not going to lie. He really did. And he flails his arms up in the air, and it's like, dude, you are 7'4". Just dunk it. You could be like MJ in the Looney Tunes. Like, you just stretch your arm all the way over there, and then you dunk it. So, yeah, that's my only issue I have with the NBA is that whole ticky-tacky foul, and that's why I think college basketball is just better. Is that reason? Is the talent better? No, everyone knows that. The best plays in the NBA. That's why I think Yaxel Lenneborg isn't going to be too much of an NBA stud right away. Because if he was going to be an NBA stud, he would have left by now, and it wouldn't be his 5th year. But yeah, no, that's just what pisses me off about the NBA. And I swear to God, Thursday, if I actually go to the game on Wednesday, we're going to have the same conversation because SGA is just going to rage bait me. That's all it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. So it's not out of the. I mean, Adam Silver has the keys to the kingdom. You know,
but it's all
well
tailored
within
for the
his
offensive game. That's all it is.
Yeah, I get it. But the NBA has to eventually be willing, because I was shocked by the NCAA doing what they did or college basketball doing what they did. Like I respect it, and I had the same conversation with Adam Jackson once upon a time because, like, my dad is another one of those.
They probably say Liverpool so good, Liverpool this, Mac Miller that, bro.
Man, I know he gets into your chest a little bit on our social media, doesn't he? I've seen that before. No, it didn't have anything to do with that. It had to do with the college game, because my dad's like, he's one of those guys where he's like, well, I don't like the NBA, but I like college basketball. I'm like, I think that's a little hypocritical. No, my dad says that. I was talking to Jackson about it, and I'm like, I feel like this is a little hypocritical simply because the college game is played so much like the NBA nowadays that it's almost the same thing. But college basketball said, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're going back to what made college basketball. So, you know, as much as you hate to see maybe your guy get a nice little hand check on his way up and not get a call, for the product overall, I think it's better. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yesterday, I will say this. That's why I think the NBA is tailoring so much of their game to the international game, is because I think the international people are fine with the way the game's played, but Americans be hating on that stuff. So, yep.
Yeah. Yep. Coming up next, getting into our final topic and then question of the day, the Detroit Lions to play a game in Germany. Why the NFL loves overseas games. We've seen them play in so many different places. Ryan doesn't tend to like it very much. We'll talk about that more. I think it's an okay idea, but we'll talk about it more on the other side. You're not inside the game.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind.
Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics,
Letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail.
whether it's a championship win or a legendary play.
NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate.
Call 586-304-4405
And start watching today.
Welcome back in. Final topic here in hour number 1 on Inside the Game. Nate Wangler alongside Ryan Glinsky. Getting into the Lions talk a little bit. I know we've been mentioning how to rebuild that team, how to get that team to the next level, get them out of the doldrums of being a 500 program with everything that happened this last year. But we're not talking about all that today or who's on the team or who's not on the team. We're actually talking about where they're playing their games. They are set to play a game in Germany, which I think is interesting. I think obviously there's a lot of international fans, and I think they'll be able to sell it out and chance to play in a new place. However, Ryan, you tend to think that those games are stupid. Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned once upon a time that the Premier League would never play a regular season matchup in a place like the United States. I mean, they might
shut down.
They might play like a friendly or something else, but they're not going to do that. So, from your perspective, why is it dumb?
Takes away a game from the real fans. Takes a home game away. Like if I'm looking at this game, okay, the NBA, I still wouldn't agree if they did it international. I still wouldn't agree, but I understand it a little bit more. But the NFL, you play 17 games, so you're playing 8 or 9 regular season home games a year. Make the playoffs, maybe 10, maybe 11. I get that. But you have so little amount of home games that the real fan that we've talked about on the show time and time again about the game's sports being for the average person like you and I. And this move doesn't seem like this at all. This is all these international games. If I'm a Lions fan, I'm pissed. Great. I get to wake up at 7 a.m. to watch the Lions play in Germany, which I've done it for 10 years anyway to watch European soccer, so this ain't nothing new to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, all the people that love the 8 a.m. hockey game, I present to you European soccer. All right, that's all I got. There's local bars.
I didn't like the 8 a.m. hockey game.
Yeah, everyone likes it, so it's like I present to you European soccer. You can do it They do it every single weekend. So there I go.
Yep.
But no, I look at this and I look at the European soccer model. And again, it's not perfect, I know. But I'm looking at the way they do preseason. All their preseason games are elsewhere. They're in SoFi Stadium. They're in the Big House. They're in Japan. They're in New York City. They're in Pittsburgh. Liverpool played in Pittsburgh like 2 summers ago. But do I see Liverpool Man City? Or actually, do I see Man United? Oh, it was Liverpool Man City. Do I see Liverpool Man City that had more views than the Super Bowl being played in SoFi Stadium? No. I see it played at Anfield where it should be. I don't even know who the Lions are playing in Munich. But if I'm a Lions fan, I'm pissed at this. I am, because this takes away a game, and everyone complains about the ticket prices anyway being so expensive. So these fans can only afford to go take a family of 4 to maybe 1 game a year, if that. Maybe they take themselves and a significant other to a game. But you are taking away a home game from the real fans, the diehard fans. Look, I get it, expand the game to international. That's fine. But you know what? Everyone bitches about NFL preseason. Everyone bitches about these players not being in it. Everyone bitches about the stadiums not being full. You know what? Send every NFL preseason game overseas. And you know what another thing is about everyone's going to see? Well, the real NFL players aren't Jared Goffs and the Tom Brady's, the Patrick Mahomes. They're not going to play in these games. You know what's funny is that the big-time soccer players don't always play in the preseason games. They don't. I almost didn't see Ronaldo play at the Big House, but he subbed down for the last 10 minutes because they're like, just go out there, dude. Play 10 minutes. So no one bitches about the soccer players not playing in the preseason overseas games. So why should the NFL care if they're NFL? Why should the NFL care if the Jared Goffs or the Patrick Mahomes, the Caleb Williams, or any of those guys aren't playing? Because ultimately, who cares? But instead of these preseason games being played on American soil, send them overseas. Send them to Munich. Send them to London. Send them to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for all I care. Don't care. But you know what? You are taking away games. I don't understand with American sports. This is where it really pisses me off. Where they are tailoring their game. They're tailoring their sports away from the American fan base, where the diehards are there, and they're tailoring it towards the international play, the international teams where they aren't diehard. They're what, a fan of year or two? That's it? That's what it is? But you're taking a game away, a home game away from the true diehard fan. And NFL players are already pissed about all the travel that they have to do to go over there. You know how hard it is to send a team cross-country in the college football game?
Yeah.
Now send it overseas, across an ocean? How difficult that
Mhm.
is? No, the NFL and the NBA, I know it's the NBA discussion, or typically a strictly NFL discussion, but had to throw the NBA in there. They're tailoring their game to the international play. And it's not like these teams are filled like the NBA. The NFL teams are filled with international players. They're not. They're still pretty much all Americans. So why are we tailoring our regular season games overseas? We shouldn't be doing that. It's stupid.
Yeah. I agree with you, but I'll disagree here on this. They've already priced the true American fan out of going to games anyways.
What
Like-
are the ticket,
like,
they're not going to price the international people out of it?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what tickets look like over there. But that's all I'm saying is that I understand it's a week away from the fans, and I can completely see where you're coming from in the way of you're taking a regular season game away from the people of Detroit. You know, you're forcing them to get up or
Still
whatever.
$300 average international, so they ain't pricing them out.
Yeah, but it's also probably a once in a lifetime opportunity for some of those people. So I don't the thing that's weird to me about the international thing with basketball, it makes sense, right? Because you have so many different countries that were playing that sport. So much so that the US, despite the game being invented here, was not one of the best basketball playing countries initially. It's a sport that was very popular in other parts of the world. You know, even baseball is another conversation. Football is weird though, because okay, they might play American football somewhere else in Japan, or I know that there's some other leagues, maybe in Canada, but it's like you're not necessarily inspiring a generation to play the game. Like they're just happen to be fans of the sport and come out and support. I get what you're saying about taking a game away from the fans. And I understand that the NFL, much like any other big corrupt league, is they prioritize the money and the exposure sometimes over giving an opportunity to the fan base to enjoy another game. But I think the issue of, people not being able to either afford to go to games or not having the availability to go to games or whatever that is, I think we've already priced the true fan out. I think we're already past that point. I think now it's how do we just get that brand out more and more? How do we invite more people? How do we get more money? It's all about more with these organizations and specifically raising that bottom line. So I agree to a certain extent, but I don't think the one game away from the States makes a difference in all this, because I think most normal people cannot afford to go to games anyways. They just can't afford to do it, especially when your least expensive game during the course of a regular season is in Los Angeles, California. Like if that's your least expensive game, it's like, wow, like that's really like I live, for you, it's like what? How far do you live away from Ford Field? Probably 20, 25 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that, 30 to 40. I mean, if traffic's clear. So but yet you have to get on a plane.
For a Lions game because you got so many people down there just for the festivities.
That's true. But if you would be better suited to go fly out to Los Angeles, California, which, by the way, in any other continent is a completely different country. But since we're in the United States, we call them states, not countries. So it's like, that would be your least expensive option. So I think, I don't think it's the coolest idea in the world. I would prefer to have one more game here. But how do we find a way to make games more affordable for those people? Because that's what I think is really going to bring that environment back to life. Because the Americanization of our sports environments really starts with that. I think it's just become too corporate.
Real quick. Got a notification on my phone. Weston McKennie finalizing a deal to stay with Juventus till 2030. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But to your point about once in a lifetime opportunity, well, I've had one. There's once that I could have drove down to Pittsburgh to watch an Arsenal game, but never did that. So these aren't like once in a lifetime opportunities because now they're happening every single year. So they aren't once in a lifetime opportunities. Maybe to see a team play, maybe, but there's NFL games all over the place. They're going to Germany. They're going to England to do all these games. But it's like, come on, man. Like, we're taking away from the true American fan, and this is what these leagues are doing now. They're tailoring for the rest of the world and the true diehards that are sitting there right at home and some of these fans don't even go to the games. They just want to be in the city, be in that environment. I don't go to Lions games, but I don't mind downtown Detroit on a Lions NFL Sunday. I don't mind that. I don't mind being down there, hanging out, heading to Tin Roof, couple bars down there. That environment is so much fun.
Fair.
But
Fair.
most out of the 60,000 fans that are at Ford Field, I bet you there's probably about 70,000, 75,000 are just downtown Detroit, maybe 80, that are just hanging out.
Yeah.
They want to be down there. They want to be in the environment. Do that in damn Germany. Nobody's going to be downtown Detroit for all that. Maybe you'll get a couple thousand, but the majority ain't going to go. So, no, that's just the issue.
Let's get into question of the day.
Question of the day. I already know Nate's going to be pissed at me for this one, just as a heads up. But Salt Athletic, an official sponsor of the National Soccer Network. Use promo code NSN15 to save 15% off. Scan the QR code on your screen or visit saltathletic.com today. But if you want a chance to win a free Salt Athletic bag, head over to our Instagram, go to NatSoccerTV, drop us a follow, tag a friend, and comment hashtag NSN Salt giveaway. We'll be giving away, I think now, 17 bags for the next 17 Fridays. I think that's what it is. But every Friday we'll be giving away one. But all right, Nate, to rage bait time. Did the USA win versus Canada feel cheap because it was 3v3?
Yeah, I mean, I said going into the overtime period, I was like, this is dumb. Like 3-on-3 overtime and the gold medal, it's once every 4 years. It's USA Canada. I mean, even in the rest of the examples, I thought 3-on-3 was dumb. Do I think it makes it cheap necessarily? No. I mean, I think in the men's game, I was expecting a goal quick. I was like, it's going to happen in the first 3 to 4 minutes. There's no way that it takes any longer than that because someone's going to get a break. Someone's going to get a clean one-time chance. Something is going to happen to where this is, and even it was the same way in the 5-on-5 overtime. I mean, it didn't take that long back, when I remember watching in 2010, once upon a time. So it is, I thought it was cheap, especially 3-on-3. Even 4-on-4 would be better, in my opinion, because it more closely resembles actual hockey, and especially in a knockout game for the gold medal. Nah, man, you got to have all 5 out there. Now, I didn't want that because I actually think 3-on-3 worked out well for us because I think with more players on the ice for Canada, we just couldn't get up the ice those last couple of periods. I don't know if we just ran out of gas. I don't know. Obviously it's in soccer terms, we talk about parking the bus and playing deep balls forward and trying to play that. Well, it's funny because USA Hockey was doing that. Like they were playing back, Hellebuck was making saves, and then they were just lobbing pucks into the neutral zone and trying to find breaks. And it happened for Boldy. Obviously, he manufactured that one goal. And then we just got, I wouldn't say we got lucky in the 3-on-3, but we were able to take advantage in the 3-on-3. No, man, I wouldn't say cheap. I think it's dumb, the idea of 3-on-3, especially in the Olympics. But no, all this stuff about, Canada had 40 shots on goal and you already only had 20. Tell me you've never watched hockey a day in your life. If that's your logic. If that's your logic, tell me you've never watched the game. It's okay. It's okay. It's the Olympics. Anybody can watch. I'm cool with it. But I can't tell you how many damn times I've seen the Red Wings, once upon a time, have 47 shots on goal and still lose a game 1-0.
Hockey.
Because the other team had 19. Yeah, it's exactly like soccer. Who gives a damn how many shots you had on? If we were able to put 2 in the net and you put 1 in the net, we beat you. So it is a coping campaign right now for Canada. And honestly, I would love to talk about that tomorrow because I got a few things to say about not only the Canadian fan base, but also all the slander about the U.S. men's national team that's going on right now. It is just, you are men's the most insufferable.
Soccer, men's national team, hockey,
okay. hockey with everything that went on in Kash Patel and all that, which I still find very hilarious. Clearly, he's a big hockey guy, but no, that it is the cancel culture is getting absolutely insufferable, and we're gonna talk about that tomorrow because I got a soapbox I got to stand up on. So but anyways, go ahead.
Weston McKennie contract extension tomorrow, and then we got Coping Canada.
Coping Canada.
Canada. That's what we got. But would I say it's cheap? I wouldn't say it's cheap because you know who benefited from a 3-on-3? Canada. Sorry. I know I forgot. They benefited on that once early in the tournament. Just saying. Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
So, they could have played 5-on-5 in overtime, but instead they benefited from a 3-on-3. Just saying. But I would have liked to see 5-on-5. I really would. But again, USA did exactly what the USA men's national soccer team's going to do against a big power. Park the bus a little bit, play for extra time, maybe a shootout. There ain't nothing wrong with it unless you lose because that's what you blame first, especially if you're the better team. But sports are sometimes weird. And it's not like football or basketball where the better team wins all the time, or doesn't win all the time. Where in football and basketball, the better team typically wins. The better team that plays on the day typically wins. I would say most times, 99% of the time. You get some weird ones every now and again. But soccer and hockey, it's when you have a goalie or you have I shouldn't say a goalie, but a joint defensive effort, sometimes you win.
I mean, why do you, yeah, I mean, like some of the best Stanley Cup dynasties of all time have legendary goalies who made legendary
That's why
saves.
Russia, I think, could
That's
have
a
won
part
the
of the
gold
game.
medal because of their goaltenders. I really think so.
Yeah.
They could have rolled in like 3 goaltenders any day. They could have had they could have had goaltender chaos for all I know, and they could have just somehow won it.
Just switching them out one by one. But we are officially at the 11 o'clock hour. We, once again, thank all of you for stopping by here on Inside the Game 237, live at 9 a.m. tomorrow as we continue to get closer to the World Cup. And we're going to talk about Weston McKennie and that. I'm going to sound off on just how ungrateful our country is when it comes to it comes to certain things. Yeah. So, yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit coming up tomorrow on Inside the Game. But for episode 236, I'm Nate Wangler. That's Ryan Glinsky. See you tomorrow.
From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters.